So the key agenda items are syllabus, talking about syllabus and course logistics, including like your how you contact, interact with teaching fellows. We'll also go over Kaggle notebook, and I'll show you like how you can use R in Kaggle notebook. And we'll do some basic numerical summary and graphical summary today. I'll get you introduced to R and some of the R packages, especially one which is related to this book. We'll also talk very briefly about missing data. So I would say like in this class, the expectation by the end of the course, so you should be able to comfortably use R for working on statistical models where you can apply many of the different regression-based methods. You can do like some kind of prediction using time series data. You should be able to do classification models with data. So that will be the idea. This is how the Kaggle notebook page looks like. And what I will do is whenever I have R session related to a week, I will label it as week 1. So this week we'll use week 1 and then week 2 and week 3 and so on. And I will suggest you also do something like that so that all these files will get stored and you'll have access to these files anytime you like. With that, I'm going to take you to some hands-on activities. So whichever browser you have, if you type Kaggle, hit enter. Kaggle, your machine learning and data science community. So if you click on that, or you can directly type kaggle.com. So that also will take you to this page. If you have a Google account, you should be able to use your Google account also to log into kaggle.com because Kaggle is owned by Google. So in fact, I'm also logged in through Google account. Okay, so everyone in at kaggle.com? Okay. So click on notebooks on the left. And then on this page, at the top, you'll see plus new or add new notebook. So click on that. And this is what you are going to see. So you may have to manage your, like, especially when we are doing something hands-on, and you may have to manage your screen very effectively because you may have to see what I'm doing, and then you have to follow those steps. So that's why I'll give a few extra seconds before I jump to anything new. So this should be very smooth. So once you come in, simply remove all this and have a very clean slate. At the top, Kaggle automatically actually names your notebook with some numbers, etc. But I'm going to go up and say week-1. So everybody sees that, or you had something different? So there might be a situation where you may be prompted to select some settings that you can do even after coming here. For example, languages, it allows you to choose Python or R. And since we are using R, I'm going to keep R as a default for me. Similarly, for preferences, when you click there, pin to original and always use latest. Right now, we are not doing anything very advanced. So even if you keep it original, that should work fine. So whatever default you have, that should be okay. Accelerator. So I'm keeping right now this at none. And GPU is a graphical processing unit. So especially people who work with like huge data sets and they are doing like very advanced deep learning work where a lot of parallel processing power is needed. This is a good platform to get GPU free, because usually getting a GPU computer is very expensive. I know like a Dell's NVIDIA laptop costs around $7,000, which gives you a good GPU power. But you can get it free at Kaggle.com, courtesy Google. But right now we don't need that very advanced computing power, so let's not waste that. So we'll keep this at none. You will also see at the top like draft session. So if I click there, it tells me that my current session has no accelerators, basically no GPU. And right now I have a weekly quota of 9 hours and I have spent only 1 minute. So we have a lot of time. And availability for disk storage is about 19.6 gigabytes and RAM is about 16 gigabytes. So for our work in this class, most often this will be good enough. I doubt you will have to use GPU. CPU will be enough. When you hover your mouse around, you will see there is one option for code and one option for markdown. So let's click on markdown first and click inside. Now suppose I want to have something in bold letters. Something like this. And then you can click anywhere outside. So it becomes title for the class. And then if you click on plus code, it will add blocks where you can type any code you like. So for example, if I type 5 plus 5, suppose that's my R code. You can run this by clicking this play button and immediately you get an answer. Or if you want 2 raised to 10, run this, immediately it gives you answer like a calculator. So R can also act as a calculator. Any calculation you want to do, you can do that very easily. Obviously we want to do something more. So let me remove this. In R, we can use this symbol hash if we want to tell R that this is not a code, but it's just a comment. So suppose I want to do some few things with data. And then let's say I want to store a number in X. The way you do that is by pointing an arrow towards X. Suppose I want to save 10 in X. So this is how we write in R. Similarly, let's specify Y, give this Y a value of 5. And in the next line, if I say X plus Y and run this whole block, so it will do 3 things. It will assign 10 to X, 5 to Y, and then X plus Y, it tells you is 15. Now let me tell you the most important thing you need to know about R. So R is case sensitive. It's very easy to get an error. So for example, instead of lowercase y, if I say uppercase Y and try to run this, it doesn't recognize Y. It says Y not found. And you see there is an error. So make sure anytime you type anything, be aware that R is case sensitive. Some very basic things you should know. For example, when I was typing X arrow 10, I created extra space between X and this arrow. But I can also write it like this. And still you get 15. But actually it doesn't look good. And especially when you have a lot of lines of code, it starts to become confusing. So it's always a good idea to give some space between X and arrow and then arrow and 10. Now let me add another code chunk here and talk about data vectors. This X and Y that I created earlier, so they are also vectors, but they have only one value. But we can always give more values. X is 10 to 20 and Y is assigned values from maybe 45 to 55, and still we want to do X plus Y. So this is what it is going to give you. It will add 10 plus 45, so that's your 55, and then 11 plus 46 becomes 57 and so on. So it will add all the corresponding values and give you the solution here. Let me make another block, data with patterns. So there is a function in R, seq for sequence. Let this sequence be from 5 to 25. And then we can say the number should increase by certain number. So let me say it increases by 4. If you run this, it will give you error because I did not put equal sign here. So you see it starts with 5 plus 4, 9 plus 4, 13 plus 4 and so on up to 25. Let me add some more examples. You can also use a function called REP for repeat. And C open close parenthesis. So let me say 2, 3, 5. And then I go outside this and say repeat this 3 times. So actually this is the way we tell R that we have more than one number. So whenever you have more than one number or item, we always use this format. You'll see that I will continue to use this kind of format whenever I have more than one number. So 2, 3, 5 will be repeated 3 times. Like this. 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5. Another way you can get pattern data is within C, I can say repeat. So far we have been using numbers, but we can always use text. So let's say this data has something about gender, male and female. And I want repetition of female and 3, repeat within quotes. So whenever you have text, we have to put that in quotes. M, we repeat this 2 times. So F gets repeated 3 times, M gets repeated 2 times. So anytime you have like many lines of output and you want to hide it, you can click on this button, collapse, and that it's hidden. So we'll go to the next chunk. And I'll show you one example of what is called a data frame. So data frame is something you're all very familiar with. When you see data in Excel, nice rows and columns. So that's a data frame. Data in rows and columns. So let me create some data. and store it in G. By G, I mean grades for a class on some assignment. And because I have more than one data values, I'm going to use C, open and close parenthesis. And let's say student 1 has 95, student 2 has 100, student 3 has 75, 85, 90, something like this. And in N, I'm going to store names of those students. And because names is a text data, so I should put it in quotes. So within quote, let's say first one is for Anna. Second grade is for Sam. Third one is for Ash, Beth and Dawn. Something like this. If you run this, you're not going to get any output. The only thing it is going to do is store these numbers in G and store these names in N. I'm going to create my data. So this is a name given by us. We can give any name we like and store within my data in data frame format. So for data frame, we have to say data dot frame, open close parenthesis. So because data in G and N are basically vectors, but I want to convert this into a data frame where I have a column for names and column for grades. I'll put N first and then G. So that will be my data. And if you want to look at my data, you can simply type my data. So this is what you'll get. So you can see it's a data frame with two columns, N and G. So you have names and you have grades. Let me add another block where we'll look at some functions. Now, someone may say that these names that we have, name of the variables N and G, are not really very informative. So instead of N, the title may be name, and instead of G, it should be grades. So you can change that very easily using a function called names. And then we can specify what names we want. So I'm going to again use this format that I've been using for more than one values. C, and within quotation, let's call that variable name, and let's call second variable as grade. And if you want to check whether what we did take effect or not, you can again type my data. And you'll see that now these two columns have the names that we have specified. Now, talking about some more functions that usually we may need when looking at data, a very popular function is str. str stands for structure. So if you do str my data, it will give you what is the structure of my data. Our data that we have created is very small. It's a tiny data, but typically you may be working with data which may have many variables, many rows and columns, and you don't want to print entire data on your screen because your screen may not be able to accommodate everything. Since this is a smaller data set, I'm able to show you, but typically people want to see structure of the data and see what kind of variables I have, what are their names. This structure tells you that it's a data frame, meaning your data is in rows and columns. It has 5 observations, which is 5 rows, 2 variables, which means 2 columns. And the variable name you can see is FCT. So what is FCT? It's a factor variable. So whenever you have text data is a categorical kind of data. If you use a statistical term like scales of measurement, where you have 4 categories, you have nominal, you have ordinal, interval, and ratio. So names of people or buildings or things fall under the first category or first scale of measurement, which is nominal. So it is a nominal type of data. And second one, grade, is a numeric variable. It's a number. So NUM stands for numeric. So it's a number. Another function you may use is, I will add one more line, DIM, which tells you dimension of the data, dimension of my data. So this is the output, 5 by 2. So dimension is like how many rows and how many columns. Another function which is popular is summary of my data. And then you run this. So the way it works is this block here, you see, I'm adding many lines, and it doesn't matter where I am in that block. It doesn't matter. Once I click this play button, the whole thing is going to run. For whatever reason, if you only want to run a specific line, for example, let's say I'm only interested in running summary, my data. So I have to select that. And you see this play button becomes a smaller play button. It allows you to run only that part. You can run the whole thing also. You can run any specific item also. So running summary my data runs and gives me this outcome. And it's very consistent. If you have factor data like name, the only thing it does is it will count, because like with nominal data, we cannot apply many statistical methods. We can probably find the frequencies of each category. So it tells me that there's only one ENA, there's only one ASH, only one DAWN, and so on. So it gives us the frequency. But grade is a ratio type of variable. The scale of measurement for grade is ratio. And with ratio kind of data, which is like numeric data, you can do much more. Like you have so many tools in statistics that apply or that can deal with numeric data. So the information contained in numeric data is much more than information content of a factor variable or factor data. Like names, you cannot like add, divide, multiply. There's limited things you can do with names. But numbers like grades, you can multiply, divide, you can do so many things. But summary function gives us what is the minimum grade. So it's 75. We know that. Here it is. Then it tells us first quartile. First quartile is 85. So what is quartile? Quartile divides data into 4 quarters or 4 parts. Just like a basketball game, you have 4 quarters, and if 2 quarters are over, that means half of the game is over. If 1 quarter is over, that means first quarter is done. So for a larger data set, what first quartile means is that 25% of the data is below this number and 75% of the data is above this number. Median divides the data into 50-50. You have 50 below and 50 above. Mean is like center of gravity. It takes the total and divides by the sample size, gives you a summary in just one number. Third quartile is 75% of the data is below and only 25% above, and maximum is 100 here. So whenever you do summary, you get these numerical summaries very easily. I'm going to add, so if anybody got stuck in the previous blocks anywhere, or you committed a small error, because initially like in R, one major problem is that it has a very steep learning curve. And sometimes it may look a bit difficult, but what I will like to do is take you to a comfort level with the minimum distractions. Like you don't have to install anything here, like no downloading R or RStudio or packages. So we straight away jump into Kaggle Notebook and we are able to run all these lines easily. But if you are making any mistake here, don't worry about that, because anyway, you'll have this lecture video available. You can revisit and see where you made an error. I can understand that depending on what computer you have, if you have a laptop, you may be using part of the screen to see what I'm doing and the part of the screen to follow. And sometimes it can make things difficult. So I'm going at the bottom and I will click plus code. Is it okay with you if I continue without a break?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody looks fresh to me. So I think we have the momentum. Anyone really need any correction or something bothering you till now, so that we can resolve it quickly, related to obviously whatever we have covered so far? Okay, I think everybody looks happy. So let's move on.
We have one question.
Yeah.
I think it's from Shawi.
Oh, yeah. I missed the point to get into this website, like get to this web page.
Okay, so very quickly, if you Google
Okay.
Kaggle, Kaggle,
Okay, yeah.
and then click on that kaggle.com link. So that will take you here. And we did not actually go through, we just avoided all the distraction because it has a lot of interesting things. I will talk about it in future. Mm-hmm. But what we did was, and you may have to use probably your Google account, although you can create your Kaggle account also. But this is a Google platform, so you should be able to log in with Google account. Sure. And the only thing I did was I clicked on notebooks and then add new notebook. And that took me to a blank template, and you just get rid of all the unnecessary stuff, and then you will see everything looks like what I have, except all the entries. But even if you start here, like what I'm going to do now, you should be fine. So in this block, I'm going to talk about some data, because statistics is all about data and also some functions. So R has a lot of data inbuilt. And if you want to know what data is available in R, you simply type data, open and close parenthesis, and then you run this. And it will give you a long list of whatever it has to offer, with brief description of, like the first data set is air passengers. And the title is monthly airline passenger numbers between 1949 and 1960. Then you have BJ sales, some data on carbon dioxide, stock markets, Orange, Titanic. So a lot of popular and interesting data set. Cars. If a car is going at a very high speed and if you apply a brake, then how much time, how many seconds it takes for the car to come to a full stop. Like, so you have like speed and stopping distance of cars. There's a data about flowers, iris, IRIS. Data on sleep, students' sleep habits, sunspots. So a lot of data inside. So I'm going to cross this out. Now, if I want a specific data, how do I access that inbuilt data? So very simple. So you have data in parentheses, and then within quotes, you have to type name of that data set. So let's say I want iris, that flower data set that we have. And we'll also use the earlier function str or structure to see what is inside iris, like what variables, how many rows and columns, and so on. So structure of the data. So let's run this block. So it immediately pulls the data and tells us that this iris data is in data.frame format, nice rows and columns. There are 150 observations, that many rows, and there are 5 columns or variables. So usually, like whenever you are dealing with the data frame, cases are rows and variables are columns. So that is typically the convention. We rarely have columns in rows and cases in columns. This is certainly a bigger data compared to what we created. We created data for only 5 students. So if I try to print the data, it will give me a huge data sheet on my screen. So I don't want that. But what I can do is I can get a sample of data, and there's a function called head. So head means the beginning. We also have a function called tail, so we'll use it later. But if you say head iris and then run, so because of this function head iris, it gives you first 6 rows of data. So first variable is sepal.length, then you have sepal.width, petal.length, and then you have last column, which is basically species of those flowers. So last variable is a factor variable, all others are in numbers. Now, if you want to look at the tail, TAIL, so first one is head, and this one is the output for tail. You can see this is the 150th data. So last 6 rows in the data set are just presented to you. So this is just the output. It's not that we are not removing anything from the data. The data is intact in iris. We are not playing with that. We are only getting some output displayed. You can do this in another way. Let's say I don't want the first 6 rows. I want only 3 rows. So we can say iris, comma, 3. I'm going to select only this and run. So it will print only first 3 rows. We can also do summary, iris. So you get this nice summary. So this is very handy when you have a lot of variables and a lot of data. So we can look at like sepal length, sepal width, petal width, and all those 6 summaries, minimum, maximum, first, second, and third quartiles. And for the factor variable species, we see that each of the flower species has exactly 50 data points. So this is like a balanced data set where each flower has equal number of rows. Now you may have all these summaries, but let's say you want something different which is not available here. And one very common numeric summary is a standard deviation, because it gives you some idea about variability in your data set. So suppose I'm interested in calculating standard deviation for sepal length. The function for calculating standard deviation is SD. And then we have to say, what is our data? So our data is iris. but we want it for only one variable. So how do we specify that variable? We use a $sign after the name of the data set. So basically we are trying to give entire address. So because telling only city may not be enough, somebody has to say like which road or which house number. So in this case, our data is Iris, but the variable we are interested in is, it may be better if I copy and paste because there's a scope for typos. So sepal length. So if I run this, it tells me that standard deviation is about 0.828. Okay, so let's do something more interesting now. After getting introduced to some very basic functions and commands, we'll make a pie chart first. Can anyone tell me out of these variables that I have, sepal length, sepal weight, petal length, petal weight, and species, which variable is the best suited variable for a pie chart? Species, because it's a factor variable, and for numeric variables we don't create pie charts or bar plots. For numerical variables, more relevant graphs are histograms or scatter plots and things like that. Now the thing is, the way this data is, we have each row and then the last column tells us what is the species. So before we can really make a pie chart, we'll have to create a table where we have each species and how many data points for each species. So we have to create a small table first. Let me store results of my table in TAB. This is my name, so this is not a function, the name given by us. And we are storing there a table, Iris $sign species. Be careful when you type species, make sure S is uppercase, otherwise we get error. So you have to remember that it is case sensitive. So what this line will do is it will create a table and store that in TAB. But if you want to know, or if you want to get that table displayed, you can also type TAB in the next line. So it will just print that. So it created a table and stored it in tab. And this is the output of tab. So Setosa has 50 observations. Second species also has 50, third also has 50. So this we can send to pie chart. And the function that we use for a pie chart is PIE. And then you say tab, where you have the table. So that will give you this simple pie chart. Actually, in this class, we'll do a lot of data visualizations. And anybody applying statistical methods or building statistical models, doing data visualization is like one of the most important things. One thing to remember is whenever you make any visualization, make sure it is complete, like it should have a title. For example, this is a pie chart for species variable. So it will not be good enough if you just say that the title is simply pie chart. So the title has to be more descriptive. It should tell something about what that chart is showing. Because even like middle school people can tell this is a pie chart, but whenever we make any visualization, we have to use a proper title, proper labels and everything. And that you can do very easily in R. If you want to give a main title, you can say main equal. And because the title is text, we have to put that in quotations. Something like this. So when we run this now, you'll see the title appears at the top. If you do not, for any reason, if you do not like these default colors in pie chart and you want to add your own color, you can go back and say COL, short for color, equals. In fact, you can borrow colors from rainbow. Open close parenthesis, because I only have like 3 species, I'm going to use only 3 colors. But you can use as many as you like. So if you run this, it will get you colors from the rainbow. So next block we'll call bar plot. So by now you may know like what function I will use to do a bar plot. The function name is BARPLOT, bar plot. And if you simply put tab and run, you get a bar plot. Again, default colors may not be very attractive, so you can do the same thing that you did earlier. So we have to give a main title. So I'm just repeating what we used last time, because situation is similar and data is same. Anything missing in this bar plot?
The y-axis label.
Y-axis, yeah, y-axis is missing. So how do we tell what should be on the y-axis? So let's add one more thing. Y label, LAB, Y lab. So what is on the y-axis?
The count.
So count. So that count appears on the y-axis. So pie chart and bar plots are good for qualitative data or factor type of variables. So let's create a histogram that are very common with numeric data or quantitative variables. And we'll do the histogram for, let's say, first variable sepal.length. The function for histogram is HIST, open close parenthesis. We have to say iris dollar. We have to tell like which variable we are interested in. So sepal dot length. So that gives you a histogram. Those of you who are not familiar with R, you must be wondering like, how do we know that for histogram, HIST is the function, and how do I add attributes so that I can get a title, or I can change the color, or I can have like more number of bars instead of like default, or change anything. So whenever you have any question in your mind about any function in R, a very strong point of R is that it has very good libraries. In fact, no package gets approved or no library gets approved unless like everything is complete. But how do you get that help? It's very easy. If you put a question mark and name of the function like HIST. So I'm going to run only this part. So immediately you'll see it gives you a lot of information about the histogram, how it works, all the details like what all things you can change. You see this main that we used earlier, labels, colors, etc. It also gives many other details, also references by people who developed this. And what I like the best is it gives you a lot of examples. It gives you, you can see a lot of examples how you can use this. I'm going to remove this, but remember just a question mark and name of the function and you get a lot of details. We'll do a few things with this histogram because usually default one is not the best and visually appealing. So put a comma and let's hit enter, because instead of adding things in the same row, that row becomes very big. Every new feature will add in a new row. So the first thing I want to do is that histogram looked dull, just black and white. So I'm going to add some color. Let's use green. So you can see immediately color changes to green. Another feature you can add in histogram, you know, like a rule of thumb, if you have 100 data points, about 10 classes are usually enough. But if you have 1,000 data points, obviously you could have more than 10 different classes for histogram. And one rule of thumb is square root of the sample size. But you can also like define that yourself. You can say, I want more breaks. Let's say if I want 20, if I say breaks equal 20, you see now you have more bars. If I say only 3, obviously it will not be enough, but it will still make it. When you see 3, it may not be exact 3 because one break is here, 1, 2, and 3. So number of bars you get is 4. So for 150, if you take square root, what is the nearest number that we get?
12.
Okay, so let's say 11. So this is how it looks. Remember that it's not going to be exact, but if you have a lot of data, it may be closer, but it may not be exact. You have seen this earlier, but I will repeat. Every chart should have a proper title because this is looking very strange. Histogram of iris $ sepal length. So instead of that, we can say histogram of sepal length. And y-axis is default frequency, that's perfect. But x-axis labels don't look good. So I'm going to say X label, LAB, sepal length. So now it looks like this. Now let's look at a scatter plot. So if you recall, let me run structure of iris data again. So for scatter plot, we always need 2 variables. In fact, 2 numeric variables. We can do sepal length versus sepal width. So how do we do that? So this time we are not saying scatter plot, but simply plot. And then let me copy paste to avoid any typos. Sepal length. And then you put a tilde sign, which is usually below your escape button. And then we'll say sepal dot width. And after comma, we can say what is the name of our data. So the data is iris. So that will give us a scatter plot. There's no clear pattern here, and there are chances that some patterns are hidden because of the species. Now, one difficulty with the plotting like 2 variables at a time is that if you have many numeric variables and you have to try all possible combinations, it can take a lot of time. But luckily we have a function in R called pairs. So it will plot all possible pairs in your data set. Open close parenthesis, we can say iris data. But for scatter plot, obviously we don't want species. We want first 4 variables, but we don't want last variable. So we can ignore last variable using a square bracket. So after iris, if you say with this square bracket, -5. So -5 means don't include 5. don't use a fifth variable. Don't use this fifth column in the data frame. So if you run this part, you will see that it will plot all possible combinations. This plot here is sepal length versus sepal width. This plot here is between petal length and petal width. This one is between petal width and sepal length. So clearly some places there is an increasing pattern. And in some cases it is everywhere. There is one problem which I see here, like design point of view, there is some amount of redundancy because this plot and this plot are both between these two variables. So even if you have the lower triangle and if you do not have upper triangle, you get the same information. So that way there is some amount of wastage of the real state here. So there is another way to plot where you can have all possible combinations, but better use of like space. So far we are only using like base R. We are not using any library. So I'm going to introduce you to a library next. So if you start your next block, so we have a lot of libraries. In fact, one of the reasons a lot of people come to R, why they use R, is because it has more than 10,000 packages, free packages and libraries. And many of them are developed by some of the leading experts in the field. And also like some big companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. One popular library is, so to activate, just like if you have to borrow a book from library, you have to do some extra work. So to activate a particular library, you have to type a library command and say which package you are interested in. So we are interested in Psych, P-S-Y-C-H. And the reason I'm using this package is because it has a very nice pairs.panels feature, pairs.panels, where I want to plot iris and square bracket -5 means I don't want species to be included. So if you run this, you'll see that you get a much better output compared to the previous pairs plot. So this one not only has in the lower triangle all the possible scatter plots, but it also gives histogram for each numeric variable and lets you see whether it has any specific pattern. For example, sepal width looks somewhat like a normal distribution. Sepal length is somewhat flat, and petal length seems to be bimodal. There are two peaks, and same thing for petal width. And the big numbers that you see in the upper triangle are correlation coefficients. So as you know, correlation coefficients lie between -1 and +1. So if two variables they move in same direction, one goes up, the other also goes up, like this one. So that is a positive correlation between two variables. And you can see the value is very high, 0.96. So very close to 1. It will be 1 if all the dots are exactly on a straight line, which in practice never happens, which will mean there is no error. But in reality, we know that there are always errors. You may have come across some equations like V equals IR. So voltage equals I times resistance. And in physics lab, if you have to plot, we don't get like all the dots exactly on a line because maybe the wire we are using is not like perfect. There are some losses and things like that. So in reality, it's not possible to get 1. Some variability is bound to be there, but this is very close to 1. And there's no negative number means there's no negative correlation. Probably this is somewhat negative, but The numbers are so big, we don't know. So what we can do is, we can change the size of these numbers. And if you want to know how to change and you are not sure, always put a question mark and the name of the function. So question mark pairs.panels, and it will give you everything that you need to know about this function. And within that function, you will see there is something called cex.cor. If this is specified, this will change the size of the text in the correlations. And in fact, that's what we want. And in the box that you see for anything, whatever you see in the beginning, so those are the default values. So for example, this cex.cor equals 1 is the default. So if I go below 1, the values will become smaller. If I go above 1, those values will be bigger. Okay, so let's do that. cex.cor for correlation. And let's do 0.5. So we were missing those negative signs. So now it's clearly visible. So you can see this is something which is very informative and very handy, especially when you have many variables, many numeric variables, and very quickly at a glance you can see what's going on instead of having to plot like one by one with a lot of effort. In the next block, we'll talk about another library, data analysis and graphics. So that's the full form, DAAG. This library also has a lot of data. So one of the data sets is called rainforest. So anytime you want to use a specific data set from a library, you can run a line like data and name of that data set. And we can say str rainforest. Okay, so this data set has 7 variables, so not a very huge data set, 65 rows, and a lot of numeric variables. The last variable is also species actually this time, and it's a factor variable. If you do not know much about a data set and what exactly these variables are, you can do the same magic that we have been doing. Put a question mark and name of the data set and run, and it will give you more details hopefully. Like, may not be in this case, it only says wood is wood, bark is bark, and root, and so on. But it also gives you reference and a small example. Let's do summary. Rainforest. If I run summary, now what you see new in this summary, which we have not seen earlier, it also says NAs 1. NAs for bark 61, NAs for root are 52. So NA, as you know, stands for not available. And it is also missing data that is very common with many data sets. So it tells you how much of your data is actually missing. Handling missing data is also something very important. You cannot simply delete missing data values. For example, this data set has 65, I think, rows. So if you start deleting each row where any data point is missing, very quickly all the data will be lost. You can see bark has 61 missing data points. So you'll not be left with much. Nothing is missing for DBH and species, and wood has only one data point missing. So handling missing data also is something one has to be careful. It's not easy to deal with missing data. You cannot simply ignore and decide to delete everything. So there has to be some strategy you may have to think about for missing data. But let's talk about missing data. Let me also run this so that it is in front of us, what variables we have. So this is rainforest data, and let's do a simple calculation. We want to calculate mean of rainforest. So we have to have correct spelling, $. So let's calculate mean for wood, this variable here. Now, when you run this, even if you have one data point missing, it's not going to give you the mean or standard deviation or any numeric calculation. You'll not get, even if there is one missing value. So one way to overcome that is you put a comma, and then you can say NA, which is like not available or missing, dot RM for remove, and we will say capital T, which means true. So we are telling, like, I know there are missing data. I know some data points are not available. Can you remove those NA values and then calculate mean from the remaining values? So when you run this, then it's going to tell you, okay, based on the remaining values, mean is 265.4. So it has done that automatically actually in summary. But when you are trying to find mean, standard deviation, or something else separately, you may land up into problem if there is a missing data. So this is an easy way to find mean from all the remaining data points. Now let's have another data set from this DAAG library, and this data is called science. We'll do str science to see the structure. So I'm going to select these two and simply run. So this data frame has actually many factor variables, unlike the earlier ones where we had more numeric variables. If you do summary, and science, the situation like life is much easier here. There's only one variable which has two missing data points. So it's not that bad compared to rainforest. But there are 1,385 observations. So we have a lot of rows. Now, if you have to find where that missing value is, it is going to take some time. But there is an easy way to deal with that. What you can do is when you type science, which is the data set, and then we say square bracket. So because science is a data frame with rows and columns, with square bracket, we can specify which rows and which columns. So for rows, I'm going to say, so first part, which is rows, I'm going to say exclamation mark, which is used for not complete, not complete, LETE, not complete, dot cases in science data set. And then after comma, nothing, that means I want all the columns listed. So this part is for rows, and anything after comma is for columns. So let's run this. So out of all the data, it will only list those cases where you have NAs for this variable. So out of thousands of data points, you can, if you want to look at, like, if you have collected this data and you may see that, okay, other variables, and you may be able to judge what this is likely to be. And if you can replace NAs with actual values, well and good. Otherwise, you may have to find some way to handle that. One way we can handle that, this is especially because we have only 2 cases out of thousands, we can remove it. So let me simply say dimension of science. So we know that we have 1385 by 7. And I'm going to create new data where I will store all the values without NAs. So NA dot omit. So remove wherever you have NAs in the data. And we know that there are only 2 cases. And then you look at the dimension of this new. Let me also include this so that we see before and after. So before removing those 2 rows, we had 1385, and after removing, we have 1383. So those 2 rows are removed. In fact, if you do summary for new, you'll see that now there's no missing. There are no NAs for sex variable. So this is one simple thing like we can do, especially in those cases where number of missing data points are very few. Like in this case, it was just 2. But if you have a variable where 90% of the data is missing, you don't want to remove 90% of the rows. Maybe it may be better to remove that column itself. Okay, so we started with the very basic things, and then we reached a place where we started talking about missing data. You want to run everything at once, you can always click this button, run all. It will run everything in no time. Now I'm going to show you how to save this, maybe 1 or 2 minutes and we are done. You see this blue rectangle in the right corner called Save Version. Click on that. Save and run all. If you click there, it gives you some options. Default is save and run all. So let's keep the default. And then click save. It will take a few seconds. Let it run. Now, once it is complete, if you go up on the left upper corner and click on home, are you sure you want to leave Notebook Editor? Say yes or okay. And you are out of it. If you go back to Notebooks and then click Your Work, the second one, it will list whatever you have done in the past. Week 1 is the one that we used. So I'm going to click there. And this has not only the codes, but it also has all the outputs for all the codes that we ran, along with the tables, summaries, plots, everything. If you are working on, let's say, homework assignment, and each chunk is your, let's say, solution 1, solution 2, solution 3. Let's say you have 10 questions, and each chunk is like you are addressing one question. either you can like go one by one, you can open a Word file and then copy paste there. Or if everything is organized nicely, you can simply, if you go all the way, somewhere here, you want to copy and then, and you can very easily transfer everything, and then you can modify or add, delete, so whatever you like. R is free. It works on Windows, Mac, Ubuntu, in cloud, used by many big companies. It has cool graphics. You have seen some samples. I will do more in next class. More than 10,000 free packages. It has very active community. Like even if you get an error, copy and paste in Google and you find that somebody has already answered that. It is great for research. Like when I write research papers, I use R output, and especially with the practitioners, statisticians, and people who are like more on the applied side. So they tend to use R. So we have seen numeric summaries, some graphical plots. We looked at Psych library and how to do pairs.panels, how to get help. And we also looked at what you can do with missing data. But for today, I'm going to stop here. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.